Hey y'all, it's Bethany. I wanted to do a video talking about what I've been reading and what I read last month. Actually last month I only read 2 books. I know that's crazy. Like, I can't believe I only read 2 books. But I've had like a lot going on. I actually been in the process of moving into a camper behind my parents' house. My husband passed away a year and a half ago. I stayed with my in-laws a while and then my parents for about a year, and so I purchased a big RV that me and my 3 children have moved into. And so over the past couple months we've been in the process of moving, so I've been a lot busier. Anyway, that's why I haven't gotten much reading done. I've been really busy with the whole moving process and also a lot of sickness, so I only read 2 books. I'm like so ashamed of that. But hopefully this month will be a little different. I'm trying to make a concerted effort to really read more this month, especially since I'm starting a YouTube channel. So the 2 books that I read in April were both by Denise Hunter. The first one was Riverbend Gap. This one is about a girl named Caitlin. She almost crashes her car while she is driving in the mountains of North Carolina. And so a deputy happens to be riding by and sees her, and he like talks to her and gets her calmed down and stays with her until someone can come and rescue her and get her car where she's not going to end up off the side of a mountain. Like, immediately they're attracted to each other. That same day, after everything's cleared up, they both end up at a birthday party together, which is actually for her boyfriend and his brother. He had never met his brother's new girlfriend, and so he didn't even realize that Katie was his brother's new girlfriend. And so we just kind of follow their story. He is running for sheriff, and so she's still dating his brother, but there's this like attraction between them, and they keep being thrown together in different circumstances, develop feelings and care for each other. In the meantime, she's also pursuing finding her mother. She was in foster care for a lot of her life. It really bothered me, kind of like they weren't open and honest with each other or with his brother. So that was kind of frustrating. There was like a lot of conflict that could have been resolved if they would have just been open and honest and talked to each other. I'm not a fan of books where one of the characters secretly like falls in love with another character's boyfriend or girlfriend. I'm not a fan of those, so I wasn't a big fan of that aspect, but I did enjoy the book overall. I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. The ending was so cute, like it was adorable. My husband, he was a police officer and I am a nurse, so, and the ending, it was just super cute and made me think about some things that happened with us when we dated. Nothing exactly the same as the ending, but there were some cute things that he did when we dated, and so it made me think of that, which was really sweet. Finished that one, and the second in the series had come in the mail, and that was actually why I wanted to go ahead and read this one so I could read the second one. And I picked that one up, and that one is called Mulberry Holo. This one follows their sister that owns the clinic. She's a doctor, and her name is Avery. So this follows Cooper's sister, Avery Robinson. And so she is in the process of trying to find a doctor to come to their small town clinic. These books are set in the mountains of North Carolina, and so it's in a really small town, and she's trying to find a doctor to come and help her out. But she's also battling the fact that her mom passed away from a genetic disease, and so she's afraid that she might develop this disease. Like, she has a 50% chance, and she's decided, you know, she doesn't want to be in a relationship with someone. So she, right off from the start of the story, she comes home and finds a man very sick and on the steps of the clinic. She takes him in and gives him an IV, takes care of him. He's really dehydrated. He's had a bad virus. And so his name is Wes. He has been hiking the Appalachian Trail, and he became sick while he was hiking it. And it runs like near the town. She takes him in and tries to help him get better. He is like majorly a stickler about debt. So he wants to pay her back. Like, he don't have insurance, and he's like, I want to pay you back before I leave for, you know, my medical care. So she has this little carriage house barn on the back of her property that she's wanting to fix up, like, as a way to, an incentive to get a new doctor to come. So he's a contractor, and he says, I'll help you out and I'll do some work on it for you, and just to cover the cost of my medical care. His friend lost his life overseas and had saved Wes's life. So that was why he was hiking the trail. It was his friend's dream to hike the Appalachian Trail, and so that was what he was going to do. His plan is hike the trail and then go back and take care of his friend's sister. Wes ends up having to stay in town longer just because of different issues that happen, and we see them, their feelings for each other are growing and their attraction for each other, and they go through this conflict, and you know, of him feeling obligated to take care of his friend's sister and her being afraid to commit to a relationship. It was another good read by Denise. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I'm looking forward to the third one. So in the first book, Cooper's brother Garrett, that was dating Katie. This book is about him and his wife actually divorced. They were divorced in the first book. They had a child that passed away and they were divorced. And so the third book, they divorced after the child passed away. So the third book is actually going to be about them. They are thrown back into circumstances together, him and his ex-wife. Having to maybe take care of a child. I'm not sure, but it sounds really good. I love reunited marriage stories, so I'm super excited about reading that one. And so those are the 2 books that I read in August. 2 books. That's bad, y'all. But they were both good light reads. I enjoyed them. I'm also currently reading another Denise Hunter book. So I know from this video it's going to look like she's all I read. I think I may have read 1 book by her last year. I think. If I read anything. I just happened to read these 2 this month. And then for the Christian fiction Read-a-thon challenge, I decided to read another one of her books that I had on my TBR cart because it fulfilled the prompt that had read a book that has flowers on the cover. Just saying, she's not the only author I read. I have read a lot of her books, and I just happened to read a lot this month, but I haven't read anything by her in about probably since last year or year before. With that being said, I am currently reading Bookshop by the Sea. It is one of her standalones. I decided to read this because it's got flowers on the cover. I decided to read this for the challenge that Katie over at Paperbacks and Ponytails is doing. It's a Christian fiction read-a-thon this month, so I picked this one for that prompt. My 1-year-old is pulling stuff off the shelf. So anyway, this is also set in North Carolina, just like her other mountain series. That one's in the mountains. This is on the coast of North Carolina. So I am on chapter 15. It's good. I'm enjoying it. Some of her books do tend to blur together for me because there are times she kind of uses some of the same plot lines, and some of the similar things happen to the characters, some similar things. Like this one reminds me a lot of her last beach read. But I'm enjoying it. It's about a young lady who, she is getting ready to open up a bookshop in the coastal North Carolina town. It opens up with her attending her and helping her manage her sister's wedding, or organize her sister's wedding. And as soon as that's over, her plans are to open up a bookshop where in the town where the wedding takes place. It happens that during the wedding, her ex-boyfriend comes back because he's going to be one of the groomsmen. They are thrown together during a hurricane and have to ride out a hurricane together, and so that's where I'm at now, in the middle of the hurricane. Side note, trying to film with a 1-year-old is not easy. But anyway, we see that going on, and them just going through their history together, where, because he basically, she has not forgiven him for walking away from her, and he doesn't really realize that there's so much to resolve, and so that's where they're at so far. Light, easy to read. I should be able to finish it pretty quickly. And then I have also started on another book that I'm so excited about, that is Written on the Wind by Elizabeth Camden. I'm on chapter 4. This, I talked about it in my last video. It's the second in the Blackstone legacy, and it follows Natalie, who's the daughter of a very wealthy family in New York, and she works at the bank that her father runs, and she's been in contact with this Russian count by telegraph. He is like a shareholder in the bank, and whenever she loses contact with him, she grows concerned, and she has begun investigating, you know, what's going on. I'm really excited about this. So far, he's been banned to a penal colony, like somewhere in Russia. So he did something he wasn't supposed to. I think he refused to commit some kind of crime, I believe, and this Tsar banned him, I think, if I remember right. But anyway, I'm reading that one. I'm really excited about it. I enjoyed the first one, and I enjoyed, in that one we got some snippets about Natalie and Count Dmitri, and we saw like some of their conversations through telegraph, and just some of the things going on there, and so it really fascinated me. Like, he seems like a fascinating character, and so I'm excited to really get into this and read about his character. And then I've been participating in a short story readathon for this month. It is hosted by Chantel at Chantel Reads All Day, and Mitzi Reads and Writes, and What Brings Korean Joy. Those are the 3 channels that are hosting it. I followed Chantel for quite a while now, and have watched a lot of her videos. So she was the one that I saw like hosting it. I hadn't really seen their channel, so I just subscribed to them, but they're also hosting it. So they're doing this short story readathon bingo. They have this sheet that they put up. You can do the bingo, participate in the bingo. You just read different short stories this month, and you try to you can do the whole thing, or you can just do like a what do you call it, one line. I don't know what you call it in bingo. I don't remember. That's terrible. But you do one line. So I've read a few short stories. I'm going to talk about the ones I've read so far. The first one I read was, I checked out a book from the library, O. Henry's Collected Stories Unabridged. I flipped through it and just read one called Tommy's Burglar. But that one was kind of like, I would say maybe satire. It's written from the perspective of like, it's like a little boy and a burglar's breaking into the home. The burglar's like talking about what he should do based on what happens. I'm trying to think. It's written kind of like from the perspective of that they know they are in a fictional story, so they're like, well, the burglar always gets caught, and so you've got to do this. He's telling little Tommy, like, you've got to do this. The burglar always gets caught in the book. And so it's kind of, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it. I know that sounds crazy, but it's written from the perspective of like, the characters know that they are fictional characters, and they know what they're supposed to do based on what always happens in like a mystery or in a story. So like, they have to do these certain things to follow what generally happens in a book. So it's kind of what I would consider maybe like satire, sort of. It was short. It was cute-ish, but it wasn't really that interesting to me. So I don't even know if I rated it on Goodreads. I just noted that I read it. and that was the first one that I read. I used that one for Read a Play because it actually has been developed into a play. Like a couple of things I saw, it sounded like that's kind of what it was for, was maybe to be a play, and that has been written into a play. So that's what I used it for. The Read a Play bingo space. Also, I read An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Beerus. I'm not sure if I'm saying that name right, but in that story, I think, is one of the most famous, like considered one of the most famous American short stories, probably like the most famous. It opens up set like during the Civil War, and we see someone being hanged on a bridge, and we're kind of like given the scene, like describing what's going on. This man is being hanged by the Federal Army. Then we go into his mind, and like we're told what he's thinking and how he's standing there, you know, looking down at the water because it's on a railroad bridge, and he's thinking about what he would do if he could escape. And so then we get a description of how he's feeling, and then he falls into the water and is like trying to escape. When he fell in the water, his weight broke the rope. He managed to get the rope from around his neck, and now he's trying to swim to survive, trying to make it back to his home. We find out that he is a slave owner, and then the ending, there's just like this twist, and it's an interesting story. It's like stuck in my mind. I feel like short stories have the power to really stick in your mind and stay, and you think about them over and over. I used that one for my prompt 1800s because it was written in the 1800s. And then I've read one more short story, and that is The Body Snatcher by Robert Louis Stevenson. It opens up with these men kind of in a pub in Scotland, and as they sit there, there's a man that's sitting there with them, who he's like half drunk, but he becomes startled when they mention a doctor's name that is coming to the area. The doctor actually ends up there at the tavern that night, and when they see each other, they're like both shocked and exchange words. And so then, from then, we get the story of what happened between them years ago. And so when this character, he was younger, he attended college, medical school. While he was in medical school, he helped participate in, I guess, like anatomy classes. And so they would dissect human bodies. And bodies are brought to where he's staying at night with, I think he might be staying with one of the professors or something like that. Anyway, he becomes involved in like the realization that bodies are being brought to him at night and they're probably being murdered, but he kind of just brushes it off because he can't prove that they're being murdered. Robert Louis Stevenson based it off of like a criminal who was doing some things like that then, like grave robbers and people that were murdering people to sell their body parts to people like professors and scientists and people who study human bodies. And so it's basically like a short story about that, about a young man who's gone to college and he gets appointed to be an assistant to the professor, and through that he begins to partake at night in, you know, they are being brought these bodies, and obviously the people are being murdered, but he don't want to accept that until he comes face to face with someone that he knew well, a lady he knew well, and he's like, she was murdered. And so then when he tries to talk to a friend of his who is another assistant, basically like, yeah, they are being murdered, and kind of you gotta brush it under the rug or something might happen to you. And so then tries to numb his conscience, but then there's another murder and things just develop from there, and in the very end there's a twist and it gets a little weird, but it was enjoyable. I felt like Robert Louis Stevenson's language style was a little bit hard to follow for me. It's very dated, but I did enjoy it, and I used that one for my From Another Country prompt because it was based in Scotland and Robert Louis Stevenson was a Scottish writer. So I hope all of that makes sense to you. I'm not always the best at explaining plots, especially for these short stories. I don't know how much to say without giving away the story. But I'm having fun with this read-a-thon. It's helping me read some things that I've had on my shelves that I haven't read, and really read more good literature. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank y'all for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, Bethany Brings Books. That would mean a lot to me. And if you like this video, please like it. And I will see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye.